Okay, so let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this discussion panel about AI opportunities and challenges in the MENA region, which is part of the AI Weekend organized by Beirut AI for the first time. We have with us today three talented AI experts who will walk us through the role of AI in our lives, the challenges we are now facing in the various fields, the advantages specifically in the MENA region. I highly encourage everyone to ask questions. So basically, you can post your questions over the chat, and we will try to address as much as possible at the end of the talk. I will start by briefly introducing our speakers. We have with us Fabio Bouhabib, the co-founder of Luxid Robotics. He has several innovations in the agricultural field, among which is an autonomous weeding robot, which utilizes artificial intelligence. So thank you, Fabio, for being with us. Our second
Thank you, Ala.
Thank you. Our second speaker is Ziad Shreji, the co-founder of Orion. Ziad is an expert in aerospace engineering with a focus on vehicle design in the field. Welcome, Ziad, in this panel. And our third speaker is Anthony Tayoun. Thank you. The co-founder and the CEO of City.AI Robotics. Anthony worked as a consultant with Boston Consulting Group and focused on growth strategies. He has several degrees in mechanical engineering, mathematics, and MBA. So thanks everyone for being here with us. We're excited to have you with us today and listen to your experience in the field. I would also like to thank everyone who tuned in for this panel. So let's get started. I will start first with a question that I would like to hear the feedback of all the speakers on. So first, I would like to ask the speakers to please tell us more about their AI startups and how AI plays a role in their job. We can start with Fabio, please.
So hello everyone again. I'm Fabio. Thank you, Ala, for the introduction. So at Luxid, we're actually building a robot, developing a robot that it's a weeding robot, an autonomous weeding robot that kills the weed in an onion field specifically right now. We use machine learning and AI in our robot to differentiate between the onion, which is the crop in question, and the weeds. So obviously, AI sits at the heart of our technology. And if you think about it, a couple of years back, no one would have ever thought that such a technology would have been possible. But here we are today building it using a laser beam, which is really an innovation since it's also precise. It's a precise method that doesn't disturb the soil, doesn't use chemical methods, and all of this.
That's nice. That's very interesting. And like now, I think the agriculture and AI field is really booming, and we're seeing even a lot of funding and a lot of opportunities in that field specifically. Thank you, Fabio.
True.
Thank you. How about you, Ziad? How are you utilizing AI in your work?
Well, the first reaction you get from someone when you ask them about flying and aviation is that they're scared of flying. And as a background in aerospace engineering, we make sure that everything is safe. Now, with modern day aviation, busier airports, more flights around the world, not at the moment because of COVID. Yeah. The only way to ensure that everyone is safe because of the huge amounts of data is by using artificial intelligence and by placing less focus on the human being and their situational awareness. And replacing that with artificial intelligence. So at Orion, what we do is we develop AI-based solutions to enhance security and safety in airports. This is it in a nutshell.
Nice. And just a quick comment, because I hear a lot of people who are concerned about how secure AI is, because it's not easy for someone to hand their destiny in the hands of intelligence that they don't understand. So what do you have to say on that?
Okay. Maybe throughout the call we can focus more on the human performance, and then I'll ask you the question whether you'd place your bet on machines or on human beings. Sounds good?
Then. Fair enough. Deal.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Ziad. And Anthony, can you please also share with us your experience in the integrating AI and what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Ala. And hi, everyone. Happy to be here as well. What we do at DEXA is a little bit downstream from what Fabio does after the onions are picked from the field. So we use robots to automate food service. Imagine something like Sweetgreen or Chipotle when you have people assembling a meal to create a salad or a bowl. We use a robot called Alfred that we make and to assemble that meal. Most of what we do is on the software side, and we use off-the-shelf robotics, which is in of itself a very interesting way of how the industry evolved. On the AI side, we use AI in three different ways throughout the process. One is vision, so being able to see and identify different ingredients and how they're positioned inside a kitchen. Two, path planning, making the robot move from point A to point B while avoiding obstacles. And three, being able to scoop or pick ingredients from inside the bin to place them in the food bowl that people would enjoy. And happy to dive deeper on any one of those three different methods or how we do it and sort of what are the things that we use.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Anthony, for sharing this with us. So as you see, we have three amazing speakers from various backgrounds, and let's get more now into questions related to opportunities of AI. So personally, I get approached a lot of times by people who are like they took maybe some online courses in AI, they have maybe studied it at university, but they really don't know how to get AI job in the MENA region. Maybe because do we lack opportunities? Do we like what kind of challenges we face as practicing AI as startups or as companies in the MENA region? So I would like to start with Fabio. If you can please share with us some of the challenges you see in the region.
So first of all, setting aside the whole economic crisis, overall unstable situation in Lebanon, as well as the pandemic we're currently facing, I'd say the biggest challenge, honestly, when it comes to AI is the competition that AI is facing, or manual labor, in other words. So in our region, in the MENA region, work hand is relatively cheap and readily available. Let's take Egypt as an example. So once I was interviewing a farmer who is based in Lebanon right now, but who used to be in Egypt. And he told us that back in his country, it was actually cheaper for him to hire people as guards to protect his land than actually building a wall, an enclosure around his land. So this is the competition of AI at the end of the day, and especially in our field specifically, which happens to be manual labor. And manual labor comes at a cheap price in the MENA region. Now, obviously, not all countries in the MENA region are like this, but I think if you factor in how we always find laborers from poor countries to do the manual labor work for us at a cheap price, that would still be a problem. So, for example, I still remember, for instance, when I was younger, I was reading about Burj Al Khalifa and how they built it, and they were saying that most workers that built the Burj Al Khalifa were paid less than $1 per day.
Wow. That's very little.
So, yeah, exactly. So this is the competition that AI is facing in the region right now. It's manual labor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is the biggest obstacle, especially for when you want to price your product or your service, the service that you're providing, and all of this.
True. And especially maybe this is for companies that are not up to change or they're afraid to make a drastic change in their business. So maybe they will tend less to open up for AI opportunities. True. Thank you, Fabio. Ziad, would you like to add something in that regard?
So regarding the challenges faced by AI companies or AI startups in the region, there's plenty of them. We can spend lots of time talking about them, but I think if I had to name some, it's actually maybe the data, partnerships with the industry, and the talent.
Yeah. So you feel we don't have enough talent to face all these challenges and problems in the field?
I think the three things I mentioned earlier are a challenge, and I think in the future it will get better compared to a couple of years back. So hopefully we're already seeing really good signs, and I'm sure in the future this will no longer be a problem.
True. Actually, the ones you're mentioning also, they're not just in the region. Maybe they are also worldwide problems.
It's around the world.
Yeah, but specifically in our region, we face them even at a bigger scale.
Yeah, sometimes in the region we're a bit late to join the wave. So and unfortunately, we don't spend lots of time trying to learn what solutions other people implemented. So hopefully in AI, it's going to be faster than other verticals.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you for your input, Ziad. Anthony, I would also like to hear what you would like to add on these challenges, and if you can also compare them with the challenges that startups or companies face maybe abroad versus the MENA region.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it's I think what Fabio and Ziad touched on are really important, and I think what Fabio touched on is more on the demand side, and then the talent question perhaps that Ziad brought up, I think is more. I don't think that we don't have the talent, but I just think that the talent is not supported well enough and is not pushed in the right direction or is not incentivized to go into the field. And I actually think our biggest issue in the MENA region has to do with more the support structure around AI and using AI and building AI companies, right? So that means the lack of infrastructure. I mean, we all know how much it's difficult to get, stable and reliable internet connections, and using AI in a way that can be very sustainable and value creating requires not only very strong internet and good bandwidth, but also sort of an IoT ecosystem. Let's say if you want to use predictive analytics or very mature competition in an industry or a company level, such that this edge that AI gives you is actually sufficient and big enough. I think also you need things like mature fundraising community for the startups, and all these types of support structures that are a little bit lacking in our region. I think also on the demand side, what we see here, at least in let's say in the US, is that there's a lot of maturity from companies that are requiring AI solution. Granted, they don't understand it to the extent that they know specifically what they want, but they want it. They understand it enough such that they can entertain different opportunities from different companies. And I think most of these things play together and kind of add on top of each other, making it really difficult to create value through AI projects in the Middle East.
True, but we want to give people some hope as well. There is, of course, there are also difficulties, but I think that we don't have to be maybe in all the fields the best. Like I know, for example, in some fields that require some hardware, some difficult resources. Okay, maybe it will be more difficult, but maybe in some AI fields that require the minimal resources, if we have good internet and a bit of better infrastructure, I think we can get started.
Yeah, look, I mean, every time there's challenges, that creates opportunities inevitably, right? I think the point that we need to take away from here is that the AI models and the way they're going to be deployed in the Middle East until the region as a whole catches up will have to be different from what you see somewhere else, let's say in Western Europe or in the US, right? And I think that's where we need these people to come up with creative, out-of-the-box solutions tailored for the problems that are faced in the Middle East, instead of relying and replicating what has been successful somewhere else.
True. It's very important actually to be honest also with ourselves and know the challenges in order to address them. So that's why we're asking this today. And I think that challenges are opportunities for solutions for creative minds. So hopefully we will be seeing in the future even more innovations in the field. Okay, thank you, Anthony. Also, because you have AI startups and you are working in the field, probably you've interviewed a lot of people to work with you. What do you think are the most in-demand skills for people who want to practice data science or artificial intelligence? Because now we know that it's a super fast-paced field, and there are a lot of skills to grasp, a lot of things to learn. So what would you advise people? What are the most important skills to grasp if they want to get into the field? Fabio, if you can please share with us your thoughts.
So obviously experience, and knowledge in computer vision and machine learning are key components. And of course, they have to be good in programming languages like at least Python or R. And they have to have good mathematical skills and optimization skills. image processing and signal processing also are key components when we're talking about the skills. But aside from the technical skills that candidates should have, I think that on a personal level, it's very important that the candidate also have good communication skills, because at the end of the day, when you're working on artificial intelligence on a project, so we're developing a robot, let's say in our case, and our software developers need to communicate first of all with the other developers that are working on the calibration process and that are integrating the software within the hardware also. So when you're working on a big team with several hardware components, software components, and several things, communication is key. So communication within the AI team, also horizontal communication with the other teams, and of course communication with the project manager that always sets the goals, like what is needed and what should be achieved at the end of the day, and all of this.
Nice. Yeah, of course. I think this is a very important aspect that you raised, because usually technical people tend more to improve their technical skills, and maybe they pay less attention to the communication skills. And I feel,
Exactly.
especially the AI field, as you mentioned, communication skills are essential, especially that
Mm-hmm.
it's still a bit of a new field, and often maybe you will need to talk to clients to convince them with what you're saying. And it's very important also maybe to talk in a level that's not too technical. Like I've personally seen that, but at the same time to get your idea. So yeah,
True.
that's a very important point. Thank you, Fabio. Um, thank you. How about you, Ziad? You're smiling. I feel you have something in that point.
Well, Fabio did a great job covering the technical side. Speaking of talented AI and ML people, sending a big shout out to the team. And I'd like to build on what Anthony said before. When it comes to AI, people have to be creative. They have to think outside the box, and they should have really good research skills, because there's plenty of brilliant people out there doing amazing job. And a good individual working in the AI and ML field should always keep a look on what's out there in terms of research. And finally, I think they should be really resilient, really patient. I think these are the most important skills I've seen so far in good people.
Patient, you mean when talking to clients, or the research part?
I mean, when talking to colleagues, when doing research.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Patience is an important point here,
It's yeah, it's an
especially that's still a new field, I think, and you often face a lot of people who are not convinced with what you say.
yeah, you're at the forefront of knowledge. You have to be creative and you have to be patient and resilient. Otherwise, you would pack your stuff and go home.
Oh, exactly. I totally agree with you. Thank you, Ziad, for your input. Anthony, what do you have to say in that regard?
Yeah, I think all of these points are really important. And going one step further on what Ziad mentioned, I think there's also a strong point to be said about bringing different bits of research from various places in the world, or cutting edge technologies, and being able to replicate and implement them on your own problem. So part of this requires you to be able to repurpose existing solution. Another part requires you to bring in different parts from different solutions and kind of merge them together to come up with something that addresses your own problem.
Yeah.
And I think at its heart, what using good AI really requires is for you to be able to identify what are the types of variables and data points you need to get the right goals that you eventually are seeking.
Yeah.
And defining that data is really not easy, and also defining how to grab this data or have access to it in a way that can provide you with helpful and meaningful information is really tough. And
Yeah.
so I think having those skills to really define the problem very well, identify what data points you have, build upon previously done research and papers and studies that have been done by different groups around the world, and kind of bringing all of this together to get to the goal that you want is really that framework and that pipeline of thought is what's really important.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I
Can
would
I
like
add
also.
something on?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, please.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I'd like to add something on what Anthony said regarding specifically data and people who are looking to join AI startups or AI companies. It's a plus, in my opinion. Let's say if you're joining Orion, if someone actually knows something about airports, just even a tiny amount of research, specifically engineers who are working on the technical side, they can understand, they can tell what is the exact form of data that can answer their needs. So that's something as well, a plus in a candidate. And thank you, Anthony, for pointing this out.
Yeah. Thank you, Ziad, for the comment. Actually, I was going to say this along this line because I think, as you pointed out to the data, it's very important to have some knowledge into the domain, I think, because you can't just writing a code, because anyone can write a code, but you also need to build insights to analyze the data. And so, yes, that's a very essential point, I think. Okay, thank you, Anthony and Ziad. So I would like now to move to a bit more specific questions. Fabio, I saw that you have a mechanical engineering background. Can you tell us more? How did you shift into the AI field? Because I hear a lot of people who are from engineering, not necessarily computer, who are interested in AI. So maybe they can benefit from your experience.
Yes, so honestly, well, in general, I'm someone that loves knowledge and that loves knowledge across various fields. So it's not just limited to mechanical engineering in general. And as a personal note too, so I'm also, as well as launching Lockseed and developing the product of Lockseed right now, I'm also launching an e-commerce platform at the same time. So I'm someone that and an e-commerce platform in women's clothing store, so it's totally unrelated. So I'm someone that really likes to work on several stuff at the same time, and I don't mind doing so. And if you'd ask me why specifically AI, I've always been interested in how machine learning works. I mean, I always had a question mark back when I was in school and reading about all of this, like what is machine learning and how does machine learning work? And I always used to wonder, like, would there ever be a chance where I would develop a product with machine learning? And here we are today actually working on it. I mean, come on, like we've got robots that can mimic feelings when honestly I can't even understand my own feelings at sometimes. So
That's a very good
I think
point.
I think machine learning, like the whole process and everything that comes with it, is really very interesting. And as much as having a degree in like a machine learning engineer or data science or whatever, as much as it helps, I think also nowadays information is readily available to everyone, and it's easy to learn, to research, to get into online courses to really learn something new. So if somebody's interested in it, I would advise anyone to do so, of course, because it's just one click away.
That's very nice. It's very nice to see how you're excited about it also. Like it shows. I think the main thing is, as you said, there are a lot of resources. You just need to have maybe the passion and to be on the right track. And anyone can basically learn if they have what it takes.
True, given the right resources.
Yeah, exactly. Ziad, you would like to add something? You're smiling.
If every time I'm smiling, I'm gonna add something, it's gonna take us an hour. The whole hour. Well, from my side, going from aerospace into AI, as I mentioned in the beginning, one of the biggest challenges in the aviation industry is safety. And just to give you an example, when you're on board an aircraft that's taking off on an airport runway, if there's any object on the runway, as small as it can get, if it gets ingested inside an aircraft engine, it can. I don't want to be too pessimistic, but at least it can delay your flight. So
No one will
currently,
travel
what
tomorrow.
so what people do nowadays, what airports do nowadays, they do manual scans where they rely on human beings to detect these debris. And I don't want to be bashing too much human beings, but because at the end of the day, they are the people building the solutions and the AI. But we cannot compare a human being's awareness to AI's awareness. I mean, in a specific set of conditions. When it comes to computer vision, a camera does not get tired, unlike the human eye. And imagine repeating this certain set of tasks for days and months and years. At the end of the day, you will lose awareness, and this is something you cannot accept in the aviation industry. So this is how more or less Orion was born.
Nice.
And yeah, that's it.
That's nice. Yeah, especially like this field, it's not something that you see every day. It's I think it's critical and no mistakes can be handled. So
Exactly. And in our case, if we did not have the knowledge in the aviation industry, honestly, we could not know the problem existed
exactly.
for us to be able to use AI to solve it. So it's a hybrid thing between AI and other verticals, such as, for example, with Fabio and Anthony. It's totally different things using AI to solve it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where the domain knowledge comes into place. And to be able also to convince people and to be credible, you need also to have this background.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ziad. Anthony, I would also like to ask you, because I saw you have diverse degrees, mechanical engineering and mathematics and business. So what do you have to say in this regard also?
Yeah, building a little bit on what Fabio mentioned earlier, and as you said, I have a mechanical engineering degree as well. I think it could be extremely relevant to what you're doing, right? So if we take an example of, I think we're both using robotics, so understanding the dynamics of the robot and how the robot behaves requires a fair knowledge in mechanical engineering. I think in the AI on the AI side specifically, let's say you're building a model that can help you predict failures in a car, right, or predictive maintenance for a car or for a machine. You need to be able to understand how the machine operates or how the car operates, or in case of Ziad, how the plane operates, to be able to build this model, right? And so there, your topic knowledge and your topic expertise will be extremely helpful. And so I think from that perspective, the technical knowledge can add a lot of value in the AI solution that you're building. In my personal case specifically, complementing this with a business background helps me in my position, being at the intersection of both the technical side and the business side. So my role at Dexai is also managing the operations on the team, managing the fundraising aspect, building the right business model to have our solution distributed in the market. Because and that's extremely important as well, because not only do you need to build the right solution, but you also need to find the product market fit for that solution, right? You need to be able to have the customers that you want be able to pay for the solution that you have, or see the value that you're giving them, so that you can really have adoption be successful on that front. And so, from that perspective, having the technical understanding of what the solution is and the business acumen to be able to sell it and be able to release it on the market, I think are really vital, and they complement each other quite nicely.
Nice. Yeah, you will be able to catch the whole workflow or the whole picture, because you cannot just have a technical product without selling it, or vice versa.
Precisely.
Okay,
so you understand technically and you speak the customer's language as well.
Exactly. Just one point, if you can quickly tell us, because a lot of people ask, do we need to be very good in mathematics to practice AI? What's the level you think of mathematics required?
Yeah, I think, I think particularly statistics, at the heart of it, that's what AI today really is, right? It's a very developed or a more mature type of statistics, if you want. So I think at least the kind of the problem solving mindset, or the way you define and solve problems in mathematics, is extremely important and very helpful in this case. I wouldn't say it's a solid requirement, because you can acquire this problem-solving mindset from different fields in the sciences, really, or on the engineering side. But I will say it's a big plus if you have a very solid understanding of statistics, and particularly statistics within mathematics.
True. Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you, Anthony. I would also like to remind the participants to please post your questions over the chat, and we will try to answer them by the end of this discussion panel. So now I would like to ask Fabio, what do you think, how much AI opportunities, or what opportunities in the AI field we have in the MENA region? Do you feel like people need to travel and I don't know, go to another country to pursue their dreams, or we have enough opportunities?
Well, I think the beauty of AI is that it can really be integrated in anything and everything at the same time. So there are so many systems, so many things. I mean, look at the diversity already here. So Anthony is working already on his own AI robot, and Ziad is integrating AI into the aerospace domain and everything. And so the diversity, so the opportunities that there are with AI are really endless if you want to speak theoretically. Now, if you want to look at it more from a MENA region perspective, it probably isn't as developed as in other countries, but the awareness is here and it's increasing, and the opportunities are growing too. And there are several accelerator programs that help startups, that help people with ideas to fund their ideas and go to market with it. So I think that the opportunities are there. You just need to have a solid idea, the right team to build this idea, and find the way to fund it.
Okay, that's nice. So you're talking here about the AI startups. Like you don't feel that they need a lot of capital, a lot of resources. They just can get started.
I think it'll depend if it's a software startup or a hardware startup. Like hardware startup always need more capital than software startups, but yeah, I think you can always get this capital somehow if you really work for it, you're really passionate about it, and you really want to do this thing, and you're really sure that this thing works also, and there's a need for it in the market. Then yeah, you can go on with it and you can fund it. Now that's from building your own startup and having your own idea and getting it to market. But at the same time, there are also several companies that are arising in the MENA region that are targeting specifically AI, such as Zaka, or non-governmental organizations such as Beirut.AI, which are helping also people that are interested in the field find jobs, work on them, and all of this.
Yeah, exactly. And also now I think with Corona, we have more opportunities that are online. And
Yeah, that's true. Where everybody's looking into how to digitalize the whole process, everything. Like we want to limit the contact with one another. And I think that even after this pandemic is done, I don't think we're gonna go back to life as normal as it was before. So it's gonna leave like a scar. And so
exactly,
we're not gonna go back to the way it was before. So yeah, we're
exactly.
gonna
I think
adapt and change part of
we're not going to be
how
the
we,
same. Yeah, I
yeah,
think the
exactly.
pandemic just speeded up this technological revolution, and
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
just have to live with it. Okay,
True.
thank you, Fabio, so much for your input. Ziad, I would like to ask you because a lot of people, like personally, I know they're interested in space exploration, in aviation, and in AI. So, what do you advise them to get into this cross field? Because it has obviously a lot of knowledge, maybe like in various subfields. So, what do you advise them if they want to start a startup or something?
That's a really tough question, honestly. I think I have to build on Fabio's answer and your question earlier on. Lots of the problems AI startups face are somehow location dependent. So let's say a startup that is based in Beirut wants to target a problem in space exploration. Definitely, the same startup, if it was in another location, would have a certain edge just by being placed in another geography. And also, as well, on regarding what Fabio said and you said, COVID. One of COVID's positive impacts is that you can be anywhere doing anything. You just need good internet. But regarding space exploration, I have to link it back to our problem initially. You need to have someone who already knows good knowledge in the field to be able to filter out the problems for him to be able to use AI in order to solve it. So the main starting point has to be someone with curiosity, with knowledge, or exposure to problems in space exploration.
Nice. And what about the data set? Because I know that the data set is a main challenge in a lot of fields. What about this field?
Yeah, so specifically in this case, I think having good partnerships with key industry players working within this certain vector is a must in this case. And this is where what I said earlier on comes back again.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's very important point. Also to be aware of this, not just to be very enthusiastic and excited, also to be aware of all these important aspects.
To be aware of the problem and to be aware of who's really feeling the pain of the problem, to be able to build a relationship with them and try to build the solution together.
Exactly. Thank you, Ziad, for the nice input on that. Anthony, I would like to ask you, because I saw that you started your journey with corporate and then you founded your own startup in AI. Do you think do you advise in this path for somebody who's eventually willing to be an innovator? Do you think that starting with a corporate is better?
I think it's very the answer is very situational. In my own personal case, I learned a lot from being at BCG. It was my first job after undergrad. I learned a lot about how to interact with different customers, how to look at different industries, and be able to analyze and approach them and understand them and find where the problems and where the problems can be in the value chain. I do think it depends a lot on what type of corporate you're talking about and how it's relevant to what you want to do and whether or not you know what you want to do in the first place. I think management consulting in specific is a really interesting field to start with because it can give you a very wide range of things and industries and exposure to different types of problems that can help you later on, particularly if you're not sure where to start. And I think this is especially important as you're building from if you're going towards a more managerial role or path. I think if you're on the technical side of things and you want to be an excellent engineer, then starting with an innovative technical corporate company can also help you understand, what are the best practices, whether it's how you keep how you write good quality code, or how you define problems, or how you run sprints and stand-ups and day-to-day management tasks and things like that. So I do think there's quite a bit of value in it. Having said that, I don't think it's a must or it's a requirement. It will just help accelerate a lot of the learning that you'll inevitably have when you move to your own venture or on the innovative side. I think there's also something to be said about what do you want to do afterwards. If you want to start something from scratch, then it's absolutely helpful, right? If you're joining a company that's a little bit more mature, then it becomes the returns are more and more diminishing to having started at another corporate.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very important point. Thank you, Anthony, because many people wonder, especially like graduates, they're among different paths, and maybe this decision will affect everything later. But yeah, definitely. I think it's, as you said, it's case-based and it depends on the person as well. Okay, thank you, Anthony. I would like now to ask some of the questions from the audience. We have a question with 3 votes. Was it challenging to find investors willing to back your startups? It's not specified for a certain speaker. So whoever likes to answer this question.
So I can answer this question because we are currently actually looking for investors. And yes, right now it is challenging, especially in Lebanon. Like you have this whole issue with so let's say an investor is going to come in. How likely is it that the investor is going to get you fresh money? Let's start with this. So all of our expenses, for instance, are in US dollars and they're not in Lebanese pound because most of
challenges.
Yeah, exactly. And with the whole issue of this, so if they give you a check actually to put in your own account and all of this, so this is a big issue right now we're facing in Lebanon. So I think right now it's more challenging than it was before in Lebanon specifically.
Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely the financial aspect is very important. Otherwise, the startups cannot survive.
True.
Yeah, maybe another perspective from also like outside of the immediate challenges that are being faced in Lebanon, and especially for those in the remaining parts of the MENA region or really abroad. I think it is challenging for sure, and it's challenging for 2 things. One, finding the right investor for your idea or for your company, because that's something that's a lot of times overlooked. And also convincing them to give you money, right? So it's like 2 parts of the problem. You need to find someone that you are comfortable working with, someone who will deliver value to you and your team other than just the financial and monetary value, and also being able to convince them to give you money. And the convincing part changes depending on the stage with which in which you are. So at the very early on, you can raise a round based on just the idea and maybe a little bit on the team. Next, after that, you need to start proving that you have found product market fit. So you have found a problem that you've identified, and your solution is something that the market is ready to take or at least entertain or try. And then there's a lot of emphasis on the team that you are able to hire, right? So are people willing to work with you? Are you able to build a company and build a good team with a good culture that is hardworking and wants to really deliver the solution, and everyone is aligned on the vision of what the product needs to be? And then after that, as you grow after that, you need to start showing hard numbers on the solution that you're bringing, right? Is how quickly is the solution being adopted? What are the prices that you're able to charge? Are the customers happy with the solution that you're providing them? A lot of times it requires a lot of customer testimonials and interviews with your customers. And so I think the challenge of raising money also changes based on the stage that you are in.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think maybe also finding the right people, it might be difficult, especially at the early stage, people who will not get a lot of return. Maybe they believe in your idea, and having the right team. So yeah, definitely.
I'd like to add something as well. I see a common issue with a lot of new founders. Their goal is to raise money, while in fact your goal is to actually have customers and generate revenue. This is the goal of a startup. This is the goal of any company, any business. And whenever you need to accelerate this, you go raise funds. That's one of the healthy signs. And regarding whether it's challenging to raise money from investors, Anthony did a really good job on explaining on the technical side what does an investor look for. But at the end of the day, it's projections. They can go right, they can go wrong, they could go really well. So at the end of the day, an average marriage lasts less than 7 years, 5 years, maybe less than 10 years. A startup from an idea stage to an exit stage goes to 10 years. So it's really important as well to look at the investor as a human being, because he's going to be like a partner in a relationship, and it's going to be at some points more stressful than a marriage.
Complicated.
And a good way to put it, if you enjoy having a drink with your investor, then that's a good sign, because it's going to be a very rough journey, and you need someone with the right background, with the right connections, more than money, with the right network and experience in the industry to help you boost this.
So maybe not just jumping to accepting the first offer of investment, thinking
Yeah,
more.
because the only common thing between all investors is they're all willing to give you money.
Yeah.
If you have the successful recipe. But what's different between one and another is who they are as human beings.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of like looking for a co-founder.
Yeah. I think it's very important to realize it, especially for people who are at a very early stage, to not settle for just any investment.
You need actually someone who believes in what you're building, because at early stages it's really hard to prove that it's a valid recipe.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ziad, for your input. There's also a question for Ziad and for Anthony. Okay, so I'll move to Anthony, just to switch. So Anthony, speaking of the combination of business and AI, from your own experience, what are some recommendations for the business tech graduate to bridge the gap and get into the AI field? And how does this provide a competitive advantage for the applicant?
Yeah, thanks for this question. It's a really good one. And I think there's a little bit of context also that can change the answer. But I think in general, it's about being able to identify what is the exact pain point that the customer is facing. And Ziad touched on this very briefly before, but it's also who in the client organization or the customer organization actually feels the pain point. And a lot of times the people who feel the pain point are different from the people who will decide whether or not to take your solution. right? So in our case, for example, in food service automation, the people who feel the pain point is the person on the line serving you food every day in the cafeteria or in the restaurant. But they are not the person who is going to make the purchase and take your solution, right? This is someone maybe somewhere in management, maybe the CTO role, or someone in a very different role that is not that is not seeing the day-to-day operation or challenge that the other team members are facing. And so I think having a very deep understanding of the target customer and who the customer is, who is making the decision to buy to try or buy your product, and who feels the pain point is really important. And being able to articulate that very clearly is very helpful. So that's kind of one side of the equation. And just displaying this for any industry would be very relevant in your job application, because it shows that you can understand the distinction between these two things, and you will be able to learn it for the particular AI solution that you're looking for. So even if you have experience in something else, but just showing that you have this mindset and this knowledge is really helpful. I think the other very important key point here is how can you connect now this pain point with the particular AI solution that you're bringing, and how do you show that this AI solution, like why is it available now, and why is your team or you yourself capable of bringing the solution and making it mature, whereas everyone else cannot do it, right? So if we take a step back and think about the kind of the things I touched on here, it's what is the problem, who from the customer side feels the problem, who can pay for the problem, and how is your solution going to solve this problem? And then lastly, why are you at this very moment capable of bringing this solution to the market? And I think just displaying this type of understanding and seeing all of these points in your application can be extremely, extremely helpful, even if it's not immediately related to the particular company or problem that you're addressing right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And in this way, whenever meeting with the investor, they might raise difficult questions. I think having this thought process, you will be able to have a strong position with the investors. There's also a question for Ziad. How can AI be involved in flight control? Example, captain incapacitation.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's actually a common question regarding captain incapacitation. Whether we like it or not, autopilot has been there for many years now. And in some form or another, it does relieve some pilot from some tasks. And instead of looking at this from a competition perspective, let's put it in a better way. And I have an example for the person who asked the question. How much time would it take for a human being to look for a keyword or a sentence in a manual that's 500 pages or 1,000 pages in a specific condition, where there's a specific set of weather conditions, speed, a mechanical failure, for example? I'm sure it's going to take them a couple of minutes, while a computer can do it in less than a second. So when we have human beings and their lives at stake, I see the outcome as positive in this case.
Yeah.
I hope we answered the question.
Yeah, I think it's well answered. Thank you, Ziad. So now I would like to move to Fabio. Can you please walk us through the process of transforming the startup from an idea to a startup, and if you can maybe focus on the aspect if this startup has an AI component in it. So can you just briefly highlight some of the key steps at every step?
Okay, so I think it's gonna be there are three main points that one should always care for if he has an idea he wants to transform it into a startup. And first and foremost, just like Anthony already said it before, you have to do a study that's centered around your customer needs. So number one reason startup fail is due to the fact that there's no market need for the product market fit that Anthony already mentioned before. And you might develop, at the end of the day, you might develop the best innovation, but no one actually needs it. There's no product market fit. So to do so, you'll have to do as many interviews of your future customers and really discover their pain points and what are they really interested in and their bottlenecks, and tailor your own product according to their own needs. So this would work, of course, for an AI startup or a startup that doesn't use AI. Now, as a second point, you also need a good team. So a solid team with complementary skills from a technical perspective and from a business perspective. So usually people tend to always focus on the technical side, but the business side is also very important. And a simple example of this is just marketing. So honestly, with marketing nowadays, you can do anything. You can sell anything. And if you have a good marketing team with a good marketing strategy, then I'm pretty sure you can get any product to market easily and in a good way, and sell it and have a good value proposition and all of this. So if I go back to us, for instance, at Lockseed, we're 3 engineers. So we had to learn everything from the business side from scratch while in the Beirut Accelerator program. And doing so was fun, actually. I'm not complaining about it, and very eye-opening. I personally love knowledge in general, just like I said before, but you do need a solid team with a business background and a technical background. And also, after validating the market need and having the appropriate team on board, you have to estimate the budget you're going to need to fund your startup. So from a technical and business perspective, and figure out how you're going to fund it. There are several ways to do so. So you could join startup programs, accelerator programs that help startups from the ideation stage, or there's what we call the triple F, like the friends, the family, and the fools, who are going to fund your startup at an early stage. Now, I think that for an AI startup specifically, it would be the same. So you have these 3 points: the team, the funding, and the validation of the market, that are very important, and that should always be catered for, whatever your startup is, whether it's an AI startup or not. Now, what's more challenging from an AI startup, if you're building a product centered around AI, is just that the technical side of your startup is going to require more work in general than if you don't have one. But at the same time, on the longer run, you're going to have a more efficient product, a more reliable one, and one that is going to reduce costs for the customers.
Yeah, exactly. I think some of the points can be applied to other startups, but what you mentioned now is more specific to the AI. And I think it's important to shed the light on that, because still AI is a new field, especially in the MENA region, and a lot of people are excited to start their own startups, and they're interested to know more about that. So
True.
Thank you, Fabio. This question, if we can briefly answer it. So there's a question, what are some of the decisions you've taken that turned out to be especially beneficial for your startup or product, such as the point raised on not settling for a suboptimal investment offer?
I think, in a really short way, the best thing to do in our case, and I think it's the same in most cases, is to take the product and throw it in the market as soon as possible, and even earlier than that. Because most technical people, they want to build a perfect product, but you can never learn as fast as when you're receiving feedback from actual operating conditions and the customer.
To
And
jump
regarding
along the way.
Yeah, and regarding investments, when you get the recipe right, you suddenly see everyone wants to put in money with you. But I like whoever sees the opportunity at first and believes in what you're doing, I think should have an edge on everyone who joined the party later. I think that's it from my side regarding this question.
Thank you, Ziad, for your input. Anthony or Fabio, would you like to add something on this question?
So I'm just going to add something really quick. One of the major decisions that really were eye-opening for us and taught us a lot of things regarding our market was really going on the ground and interviewing more than 30 farmers still today. We're still interviewing farmers. We're still finding out their pain points. What do they really care about? What are they looking for? What is the service that they want? So you have to tailor your own product to the market, to your customers, because they are the one that are going to buy it. You're not the one that's going to buy it. So you really have to, so as much as your ideas are nice at some point, you have to acknowledge the fact that they are the ones that will decide, not you.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important to focus on the clients, not just to be very happy about our idea and how it's going to benefit us. Yeah, thank you, Fabio. Okay, Anthony, you have something to say in this?
Yeah, just a very quick point from our side, and I think Ziad and Fabio did a good job answering this question. I think one of the things that we had to do recently is, due to COVID, pivot a little bit the target customer that we're targeting with our solution. So initially we were targeting food service. We were doing food service automation. Initially we were targeting quick service restaurants. And with COVID, as you know, the demand there is actually increased because people don't want or would prefer now fully automated solutions for food because it reduces contamination risks. However, we realized quickly that restaurants are simply worried about survival and are just too busy now addressing some of the other COVID challenges that they're not even having the mental load or mental capacity to entertain such solutions. And so we chose to pivot to more traditional food service automation, such as catering for hospitals, for offices, for schools, facilities that need to be open even during COVID, and that would benefit from the solution. And I think the point here that I'm making is, don't be afraid to move or pivot or change focus when you have to, especially when big things change in your environment. And a lot of times, startups tend to be, contrary to what you would expect, tend to be afraid of changing focus or changing direction, because that is a lot of times considered to be similar to failure. But in reality, it's a huge opportunity, and it could be very helpful in giving you the right push that you need if you react fast enough to big changes in the environment and in the market.
Yeah, exactly. And I think COVID is proving this every day. We have to
Exactly.
be agile and adapt. We can't just
Exactly.
plan and stick to a plan.
And at the end of the day, that's the strength of a startup, right? That's why big companies aren't able to pivot and change and adapt very quickly to the environment. That's why startups have to be agile. That's one of the biggest edges.
Exactly. And I think startups have this advantage. I mean, it's harder for big companies to just change all those software that they've been building for years. But for startups, it's easier. Yeah, thanks a lot, Anthony, for your input. Okay, now very quickly, I would like to ask our speakers if they have final comments or words or advice for the audience, like in 1 minute. If you want Ziad to start.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for you and everyone who organized this event, and to everyone who's watching this or will watch it in the future. Like, stay determined. Yeah, no matter how hard it gets, we're going through very hard times. But as Anthony said a while ago, just a moment ago, sorry, be not hesitant to change and adapt. And a big thank you again. And yeah, that's it. I sent our company LinkedIn profile. Please like it and keep an eye on job postings in the future. And if anyone has a question, my email is Ziad, Zulu India Alpha Delta @orion.com.
Thank you so much, Ziad.
Okay.
It was very fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Fabio?
So again, adding on what Ziad and Anthony already said, so you persevere in general, like as you as a person persevere in life, and you should know when to pivot if you have your own startup, of course. But perseverance is key, especially during these hard times, this hardship that we've been through in Lebanon for this past year. Like, I know now is not maybe the best or the most optimal time to think about having your own startup or anything, but trust me, especially when it comes to AI, this now is the time, because the field is booming. And if you're not going to go into this field right now, somebody's going to get there before you. So
yeah, you'd better, the ship is sailing. You're either in there or just
exactly.
left behind.
Exactly.
True. Thanks a lot, Fabio. And thank you for all your
Thank you.
input.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anthony?
Yeah, thanks, Ala, and thanks for the Beirut AI team for this opportunity. Just complementing what Ziad and Fabio mentioned, I think one big piece of advice that I'd like to give is don't be afraid to fail. And a lot of times in our culture and in the Middle East specifically, we're very, we have the stigma about failing at something. But the reality is in the startup world, this is extremely common, right? Like if you look at the most successful people out there in the world, many of them have failed once, twice, several times before, and every failure is a huge learning opportunity. So make sure you do things the right way, make sure you do what you believe is right at the moment, and that will almost guarantee that you will learn something or a lot of things from the experience that you're doing. There's also different ways to fail, and so failing well is something very important to keep in mind as well. And I don't mean this on a negative note. I mean actually very much the opposite. This failure always makes us better, makes us understand and see the problems and mistakes that we've done in the past, and will prepare us to do better and perform better in the future.
Yeah.
The road to success is paved with a lot of obstacles, and we have to overcome them, right? And that's the whole point and the beauty of this journey.
Exactly, and that's what makes it worthwhile, actually. If everything is just paved, it wouldn't be that much interesting. Okay, thank you so much, Anthony, for being with us and for sharing all your inputs. Once again, I would like to thank our speakers. It was a very nice discussion, and this will be saved offline for people to view it later. I would also like to thank all the audience for being here with us and for asking the interesting questions. And I would also like to note that you can now join the networking lounge where you can network with the speakers and the audience. So once again, thank you and see you in future discussion panels.
See you. Bye.
Bye.